About Obama, Putin, war over in Syria, the UN General Assembly, and what's to come. Are we in World War III? What are we going to do? And first, I want to start off by saying a couple days ago I watched both Obama and Vladimir Putin's addresses, their speeches to the UN General Assembly 2015, and they both said pretty uh, agreeable things that you can kind of agree upon. I mean, at least to me, at least. When I was listening to them talk, I was like, yeah, I agree with this guy. And then I listened to Obama and said, yeah, I kind of agree with this guy too. And it's because they're good with words. They know what they're saying. They know how to persuade people. So it's kind of natural to listen to a lot of these politicians and be like, yeah, he's right. And then listen to another one and say, oh, yeah, that guy's right too. Because they're good at that. That's kind of their job, right? Their job is to persuade people, persuade the public. So we got to remember that. Another thing we have to remember is that neither one of these people are actually are good people. They're not good people, first of all, and they're not really interested in the benefit of the people residing in their country, meaning like the general population of their countries. These political leaders look at us like something to be managed. We're like insects or some sort of like drones to be managed, or we're just like things to be played with and moved around and engineered. I guess that's the best way. Experimented on, and that's really the way they look at it. And if you don't believe me when I say that, and you're like, oh, this guy you're talking about your butt or whatever, well, you just have to look at history, look at what they've done to us, what they continue to do to us, whether that be in the States or Canada or Russia, the type of things that they're involved in, the way they disregard lives across the world, like the way the foreign policy over, especially the American foreign policy, because I know much more about the American foreign policy than I do about Russian foreign policy, and I know for a fact that the American foreign policy over the last about 50, 60, 70 years for sure have really completely disregarded human life and spreading of arms and spreading of war and collapsing societies and rebuilding societies. And it's just, if you want to try to dispute the fact that these people actually care and value a human life, then you don't understand what's going on. You don't understand the game. You don't understand the type of people and the type of organizations that are running the show right now, especially in Western democracies. The way they look at 50-year plans, the way they've got goals to, first it was globalize, next will be to implement like a technocratic state where things are controlled by computer and systems and formulas and government and police kind of thing. It's going to be all pure. I mean, what they're aiming for is like a dystopian type of world where we're all kind of like Half-Life. If you know the game reference, it's a video game, Half-Life, kind of like that, where everything is kind of controlled by like droids and like formulas and mathematics and a system. And this is where this is all kind of heading for these guys, for the guys in the Western democracy. I don't know about what all their intentions are. I'm sure there's different groups and they have different intentions, but for sure, based on my research, a lot of the organizations like the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, and the globalists, the globalists who are involved with that, they all have very similar stated goals, which is a technocratic society run off computers and a system of control that they don't even have, where a system of control where you don't even need humans. Anyways, I'm going to do more videos about that. I just want to kind of set you up for understanding, I guess, my perspective, not necessarily the right perspective, but this is just the way I look at things when I'm reading these articles or listening to Obama or Vladimir Putin do their speech at UN. This is what's going through my head and where my understanding is coming from. First off, that there are multiple secretive organizations and public organizations involved with each one of these people, whether it be who's behind Obama or who's in control of Obama, and the same when it goes for Vladimir Putin, who's behind him, who's in control of him. I'm sure there's different groups. They probably have very similar goals, but and one goal is Russia's on top, another goal it's like globalists or whatever on top. I don't know all the information because I'm not part of these groups. All I know is that those are the type of communications that are going on. Those are this is the the type of stuff that these, David Rockefeller writes in their journals, and Henry Kissinger and whatnot. These are the type of things they talk about, right? And not just them, just there's a whole whack of, like, a whole bunch of these globalist people and these people that are in these groups that talk about very similar things. So moving on, they both had their speech at the UN, and like I said, both of them sold their speech very well. It was very persuasive. Um, After the speech the next day, much of the alternative media movement and much of the media in general kind of sided with Vladimir Putin and kind of said, "Oh yeah, he won the debate because of whatever reasons, like because he brought up problems with the foreign policy, U.S. foreign policy, and whatever." Like, so it was. People say that he won the debate. Well, where I say we all lose. Like, no one won the debate. We all lost because this is still going on. These people are telling us what we want to hear. They both gave us speeches that we kind of want to hear. Obama spoke about, defending the citizens of Syria that are getting hurt by the Assad regime over there. And that is going on. Without a doubt, people have protests against the Assad regime, and the Assad regime and the police open fire or do awful things or whatever. I'm sure that stuff goes on. So in one sense, Obama's right. Are we going to stand by? And a lot of people would. There's a lot of people that may watch this video and won't agree with what I have to say and be like, yeah, we should just sit back and let them deal with their own affairs. And that's one approach to things. That's one way of looking at it. Personally, I think that we should get involved. We should stop these dictators, not just Assad regime, but dictators all across the world. There's a lot of them. There's a bunch of bad stuff going on. I think it is the responsibility of the stronger countries of the world to be that big brother kind of big brother, quote unquote, but that father figure, and kind of chastise the ones that are not following, or not doing better, the ones that are not learning, not trying to elevate their citizens, not trying to find full potential and stuff like that. We shouldn't allow politicians, whether they're in other countries or in our own, which still go on, by the way. I'm not saying like we need to get our own stuff in order first. We need to get our own politicians in order as well at the same time. Would be great, but for sure we need to get our own politicians in order before we start going around policing the globe. So please understand that point, that I don't believe that we should just go out and police the globe as it is right now, the way that the US are doing it, the way that we're doing it in Canada and NATO, the way NATO and the UN are doing it. I don't agree with that approach because we don't have true democracy. We don't have a nation or a country that's running successfully in Canada or in the US. I would say it's not successful because if you look at all these different problems, I'm not going to get into the list of problems that we have, but anyone that does a little research about what's going on in these countries, US, Canada, Western countries, know that we're not reaching our full potential, that the corporations and other organizations have set up boundaries and set up roadblocks so that we don't reach our full potential in order for them to make profits. And that's what a lot of this is about. Certain organizations, certain companies, certain governments want to be able to maintain profits and build more profits, so they don't allow society to naturally develop. They're not allowing us to actually naturally develop. They're engineering the way we develop in order for them to profit as much as possible, to exploit the population as much as possible. I know I'm going all over the place, but I think this is important information that people need to at least go and try to research and verify what I'm talking about before you judge this, before you understand. Don't take what Obama and Putin are saying as at face value. Like, there's organizations and corporations behind these two people that are playing roles, and there's profits to be made, and these are just sweet talkers that are put in front of us to make us think that everything's kind of okay. Look, they're talking to each other at least. Yeah, they're talking to each other, but they're also bombing each other. So I was going to play this video, but I think I'll just summarize it by saying that at the UN Assembly, Putin was saying that the Syrian regime, or the Syrian government, which is the Assad regime, is legitimate. meaning that they should be looked to as a legitimate, as a real government, and that it's wrong for the U.S. to be in there trying to take down their government. But they did agree with the ISIS thing. The Obama and Putin both agree with the ISIS thing, saying that ISIS is a problem because not only are they causing violence in Syria and in the Middle East, but now these ISIS rebels are spreading out to Western countries and Eastern countries and Russia and causing problems too. So that's one thing they have in common. Another thing that Russia or Putin brought up, that the alternative media, myself, and many others out there have been saying for a couple years at least now, is that the rebel groups, they call them moderate rebel groups that the CIA and the US military have been funding, training, and arming over in Syria and the Middle East for a while. I'm not sure about how many years now, but for a while, because they were doing it before ISIS. So they were doing it for a while. Even Al Qaeda in a way was created by the U.S. military. If you look in the history of Al Qaeda, so these groups, the U.S. and the CIA are funding these moderate rebel groups to fight ISIS and the Assad regime. Well, then these moderate rebel groups are joining ISIS. They're taking their training and they're taking their guns and their weapons and their funding, and they're joining ISIS. And Vladimir Putin brought this up. He said we can't be training these rebels over there. We shouldn't be choosing sides in this. We should stop, horrific things from happening, but we shouldn't be training more rebels and creating more of a power vacuum and just like funding. And that's obvious, right? That's obvious. I mean, I bet you Vladimir Putin knows what's up, how it's about money and how it's about just creating a system of instability to go in there and take over things and stuff like that. But he's not going to say that because he does the same thing. So both guys, or both politicians, Obama and Putin, want to say some truthful things, but just not too much that their population wise up. You understand? That they're not going to give away all their strategies. They just got to show that they're kind of bickering, because there is a true power match. There's a fight for who's going to be more powerful and who's going to take over what, and who's going to push their power or force their power onto other nations. Because neither of these guys are good guys, but at the same time, they're not going to tell us the truth about really the strategy and the techniques involved and all the details of stuff like that, right? The citizens are not privy to that. So that's one truthful thing that was brought up that Putin did talk about was the fact that the CIA, the military, has been arming rebels over there, and then these rebels are in turn joining ISIS. So in fact, even Canadian military, if you're Canadian and watching this, even Canada was giving technology and different supports to moderate rebels over in Syria and in Libya as well. The same thing was going on in Libya. And the thing about Middle East is that all these countries are all so small and close together that they all travel around. So I mean, if we're funding and arming and training rebels over in Libya or wherever, or even in Iraq, if we're arming police or whatever, it's very simple for ISIS to get their hands on these people. And if ISIS kidnaps an Iraqi and says, or Iraqi policeman, and says, "Join us or you're going to die," or "Join us or we're going to hurt your family," or whatever, well, the guy's going to join them. So everything is so close that all of our funding and all of our money and all the weapons that Canada and NATO have been funneling into these different rebel groups and trying to overthrow governments and shit are all kind of getting sucked into ISIS. ISIS is getting their hands on everything. And I'm not going to go through all the articles. Go do your research about how ISIS got their hands on armored vehicles, got their hands on Iraqi police weapons and equipment. How Canada and the NATO forces have been giving these rebel groups in Libya and Syria equipment, and the U.S. have been giving them weapons and stuff like that. It's just go do the research and understand that we're not dealing with simply a crazy terrorist organization that is all about just jihad and it's just all funneled by Muslims. Like it's it's just a completely Muslim problem. Like, oh man, a lot of people out there really don't understand what's going on when it comes to how foreign policy plays into the strength of a radical jihadists and this type of terrorism. Um, so next on, I'm going to talk about yeah. So Vladimir Putin and Obama had this speech. Vladimir Putin said, "We're going in. We're going in to fight ISIS because we can't take these ISIS people. We don't want them in Russia anymore. So we're gonna start attacking ISIS in Syria." So the next day, oh yeah, and he also, like I said, he criticizes the U.S. Funding, training, and arming moderate rebels. So the next day or a couple days later or whatever, uh, the U.S. start to I had it open here. Where was it? Oh yeah, the U.S. stops sending new Syria recruits to trouble the rebel training program. They actually start. The Pentagon decides to do a review of the moderate rebel training program because I don't know why. Maybe it was because of Vladimir Putin spoke up or whatever. But maybe this is just to cover their butts so that the public make it seem to the public that they're actually trying to do something good or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it shows you right here how they're trying to review it, and I had a video up here somewhere. Um, this one here. Let's just quickly listen to this.
Syria helped create ISIS. Mr. Obama's strategy against the terrorist group depends on U.S.-led airstrikes and American-trained Syrian rebels on the ground. But our David Martin reported last night that the troubled training program is on hold. Holly Williams found out why when she met a rebel commander who asked not to be identified for fear of assassination.
Colonel Hassan Mustafa is a commander in Division 30, the home of Syria's American-trained rebel fighters.
Why have so few Syrians been trained by the Americans so far?
We gave the Americans the names of more than 1,200 fighters, he told us, and they only accepted just over 100 of them for training. But the strict vetting process is not his only complaint with America.
They were training them in Libya as well, so there's more than just 100.
When the first group of 54 US-trained fighters entered Syria in July, several of them were captured by Islamic militants. Colonel Mustafa told us America left his men vulnerable by giving them too few weapons and too little ammunition. But the commander of the second group of 70 US-trained fighters admitted to us that he gave half of his American weapons to al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate.
Okay, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that it's so hard to keep control of guns and money and everything else that they're, moving over in the Middle East right now. So it's just crazy over there. So, you had this. The U.S. is reviewing their thing, and then while this is going on, Russia starts attacking Syrian rebels. But they're not just attacking ISIS. Russia is actually. Hold on a second. I had a video too of this. Is it this one? Anyways, Russia is attacking Syrian rebels. The ones potentially have been trained by the U.S. And then there was a press statement, press release by Obama. He did a little warning to Russia to keep their attacks to ISIS. And this is all going on in the last couple of days. So this video is long enough, and I'm just going to leave it there and say, hey, there's much more important things going on right now than your stupid candidates for the election, whether that be in Canada or the U.S. Okay, those people are not talking about what's going on here. As far as I understand, there hasn't been very much talk about it from the candidates, the potential president candidates of the states, and prime minister, potential candidates for prime minister of office in Canada. There's potential World War III going on. Like, there's some serious stuff going on, and we should all pay attention. And we should all really more than pay attention. We should act. We need to, come together and demand that Canada, what doesn't play a role in it, or at least calls for less sanctions on Syria, or maybe getting these countries over there like Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries to stop funding the rebels, because there's funding coming out from other. I don't know all the information about it because I haven't done enough research on it, but based on my limited research of it, there's funding coming in from Muslim countries and other countries around the world and around that area. So maybe if we stop ISIS from getting funded, um, what other solutions are there? I'm asking you out there, if you're watching this video, think of solutions. What are the solutions? Is it to come together and tell our government that we want out of it? Is it to get them to stop people from funding it? Is it to allow Assad have his government and get out of the way and just focus everything on ISIS? Is it to stop training people over there? Maybe stop funding things over there? Is it to stop bringing weapons in that aren't like our own military weapons, but weapons that we're giving to rebels? Like, what are the solutions, and how come our politicians and the people running for political parties in Canada and the US are not discussing these very important matters? Who's involved with this? Who created these problems over there? The organizations, the international and geopolitical and globalist organizations. And why aren't the media trying to do a better job to get people aware and become active in trying to find solutions to these problems? Like, I don't have all the solutions. I only have 24 hours in my day too, just like yours, and I'm looking for solutions. But it's heavily relied on the decisions of others and other people's perspective, your perspective. I don't have all the solutions, and I'm just my perspective. But we need to figure out how we can come together with common ground and make positive decisions. Make positive changes in the world. And it's not going to happen by you voting in a new prime minister, unless, like, we as a society or as citizens hold these prime ministers to a higher standard, and get them to follow their promises, to fulfill their promises. They make a whole bunch of promises. Why don't we get them to promise to do something about this? Whatever we decide that is the right thing to do. If you do watch this video all the way through, it's like 23 minutes. Leave a comment of what you think should happen. What do you think is the answer to this? And I'm sure I'm going to get a whole bunch of diverse answers. Some people are going to be like, bomb them, nuke them. Some people will be hopefully not as ignorant, not as awful. Anyways, leave a comment, share this. Things are getting crazy. Things are getting crazy. You've got Obama warning that things are getting bleak, getting crazy. That's in this video here. I didn't play it, but it opens with it saying that Obama is warning that unless things change, like, we could be going down a dark road or something like that. And he said in those type of words, like,